Members, we do have a member who will be retiring from the chamber, and as is customary, we do allow that member to give a final farewell speech. So it's my honor to recognize the member from Hennepin, Speaker Paul Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You can wait till after. So, thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I am really excited to be moving on to the Supreme Court in this new effort, but I have to say this has been a week of pretty deeply mixed emotions because I really do love the Minnesota House of Representatives. It's a place where amazing things can happen, miracles really, because of the work that we do here that can really change people's lives all across the state. And there's so many times when, the words and ideas that people raise here, I do think call out the very best in what Minnesota is all about. And so I am leaving with very much mixed emotions. I do want to thank some people to start out with. First of all, of course, my family, my wife Karen and my kids Emily, Griffin, and Evan, and my mom and dad who are an inspiration. And you all know how big a sacrifice our families make to let us do the work that we do here. And so I want to thank them so much for allowing me to do that. I want to thank my legislative assistant, Ursula Griska, who is here. We were randomly assigned 16 years ago and have been together ever since. So I'm very lucky to have that kind of steadiness. But there's no one more competent or common sense or calm. And I don't know how I'm going to hold it all together, frankly, when I leave here without having her keeping track of everything. So thank you, Ursula. And just on that note, one more plug for the 2-to-1 LA to member ratio. I think it would be a good idea. So there's a lot of other people that have helped me do some of the work that I've done. Joanna Dornfeld and Carrie Lucking and Jamie Tincher and Zach Rodvold, who's here today. Thank you, Zach. Mike Howard, Jamie Makepeace, Catherine Thompson, Bryn, Sasha Bergman, Abu Amara, Dan Pollack, and Jess Nyman. And of course, the amazing Kate Prushek, who I've worked with for many, many years, and the irreplaceable Mike Charbonneau, who was an incredible font of wisdom and support. So I want to make sure I thank them. And I also want to thank Representative Murphy, who was an incredible partner and for her counsel and her friendship during some really amazing years. So thank you, Aaron. Okay. And I want to thank Pat and Al before you and the whole staff for your advice and kind of keeping things on track for all of us here. Thank you so much. You don't know until you do some of our work what a big role they play in making sure that the work we do here gets done. I do want to thank Governor Dayton for many things, I guess, but really for his tireless leadership over the last 7.5 years. And I have to say, in all my years of elected service and politics, he is really the one person who, more than anybody else I know, really, and surprisingly based on his background, but gets ordinary Minnesotans and kind of what their pulse is. And he has done amazing things and served them so well, served the state so well for so long. So thank you, Governor. I want to thank my classmates from 2003. We came in with 44 new members. Over a third of the House was new the year we came in 2003. And there are only 6 and soon to be 5 of us left. But Representative Hoppe and Representative Lesh, Representative Nelson, Representative Erdahl, and my seatmate, Representative Hornstein. And each of you has done such amazing things to help shape the state of Minnesota. So I'm really proud to have learned a lot with you and grown up together here. Speaker Daudt, we've discussed many times kind of the unique role that we play, that people play as speaker, and that not a lot of people can understand exactly what that role is all the time and what that role entails. But I do want to say that you have handled the role, and certainly the way that we've been able to work together with class and grace, and I really want to thank you for that. And I do want to just, and I'm almost done with you, thanks, but thank just a few past members who I served with. First, Margaret is here. Margaret Anderson Keller, thanks for being here. She was a good friend, first of all, and a compassionate leader, and really, I think, a model for all of us about one thing that's so important, and that's focusing on actually getting stuff done for people and being effective. And that was kind of your watchword, and you always got that done. So thank you, Margaret. And then two people, I grew up in Bloomington, and there's two former members who used to represent Bloomington that I want to acknowledge. The first is Ann Winchesky, who was probably the wisest legislator I know. She was the person that I would go to, and Joyce, you kind of understand how this works. When you need to get something through the caucus, Ann was the person I would call on, because then everybody would kind of go along with stuff. She was smart and persuasive, and so her wisdom and advice have always been invaluable. And the other person is Dan Larson, who was my seatmate and my mentor and my state senator for some years, and a really, really great friend. And then the last person I just want to recognize is Tom Huntley, who many of you served with, but really the true gentleman of this house, but who taught me so much about health and human services and being a legislator and a good human being. So there you go. So there's a lot of moments that I reflect on as I've kind of thought it over the last week, and I don't want to really talk about many of those, although one in particular that of course stands out for me was the vote for marriage equality, which I think was the one that I will remember most, just because of the dignity with I think people handled themselves on the floor that day, and all the people that were here, and so that will stand out. But I just want to reflect more on, and briefly I hope here, but on this institution as a whole. And we often forget, I think, as we rush through the day-to-day work of legislating, what a profound responsibility we have, and what a great privilege is this. There's only been about 5,000 people in the 160 years of our state who have been able to sit in these seats. And, we often forget that, I think. And, for me, the times I remember that are kind of first either those quiet moments, when you're here late at night negotiating a conference committee report or a final deal, and you wander the corridors and look at this amazing building and read the quotes on the wall. That starts to sink in a little bit about what a profound privilege it is to be here. Or it's times like we had on Monday in Representative Garofalo's committee, where we took on two pretty tough bills, and I thought the legislators and the people that came to testify handled things in exactly the right way, where we actually dug into the issues and tried to understand them. And I wish more people could see the legislature operating in those moments, because I think they would see what this place is really about, which is serious people taking on serious issues in a meaningful way. So I guess the thing is, don't take this work for granted, because it is a great privilege to be here. And remember that this place, existed long before we were ever here, and will exist a long time after us. And we should take care of it as an institution. And then, this is my one substantive kind of plea, I guess, at the end. And that is, I do hope that we take the time to really focus again on making sure that we improve the process. It's something that can be improved, and it's been both parties' problem, and it's both parties' responsibility to step up and fix it, to make sure that we give conference committees and committees the power that they deserve, to make sure we bring transparency back into our process, that we have things like a 24-hour rule, that we apply the Data Practices Act and open meeting laws to ourselves like we apply to every other unit of government. One of our most important jobs right now, I think, is to restore people's faith and belief in the integrity of our government and its processes. And I think we all have to take up that mantle, I guess, and to try to restore accountability and people's belief in what we do here. And as a former leader who's been on both sides of this issue and, abused it in the past myself, I know that it's really going to be up to the rank and file members to make this change and to make this change in culture. So I hope that we can do that. I have two more things. The first is, I've looked back over this last week. One of the things that jumped out at me is that many of the proudest moments I've had here were taking those hardest votes that we ever take, which is when you have to vote against your friends and against your caucus. But they're the votes that you're going to remember, in my experience. It's hard, but that's when our system, I think, shows that it works the best. And I hope every one of you has the chance to do that at some time. But I just do want to recognize Representatives Loon and Garofalo and Hamilton, who have taken some of those hard votes in the past. And anyway, I hope we all have, again, a chance to take those kind of votes. And the last thing I want to say, that wasn't really me breaking up, that was just my voice. That the greatest parts of this job, really, and I think probably all of you would agree, is the chance to go out and meet with your constituents and travel around the state and listen and hear kind of the fears and the aspirations of Minnesotans. Those interactions, I'm sure you would agree with this too, have absolutely changed me and how I see the world and instilled in me a deeper understanding of trying to see the world, through someone else's eyes. And I think that's what, in the end, our job really is here. And I wish more Minnesotans would have the chance to go out and have those kind of conversations and interactions with so many people. We have some very serious racial and gender and disability and poverty gaps in this state. And it's a crisis, and we have to really make that our top priority. And we need to listen to those who are affected to come up with those solutions. But I also, want to say that there's people from all backgrounds who are doing incredibly amazing things all across the state, and who are, inspire me every time that I go out and talk to them. And I think, again, if every Minnesotan had the chance to go out and meet people like I've been able to meet people, their hope in the future of this state would absolutely be restored, because it is a pretty amazing place. I feel incredibly blessed to have grown up here and all the opportunities the state has given me. I feel incredibly blessed to have been able to serve with all of you in the House of Representatives. It's a treasure and a debt that I know that I can't ever repay, and so I just want to thank you very much. Thanks.